Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
Today we conclude our conversation with Mark Geist.
So you're in with TC, triple canopy. That's the inside baseball lingo right there for you, Baker. And
Steal that away.
But then you went over and you were on that. What was that contract in Baghdad that you were on, where you're training SRF guys or
it was
something like that?
with USIS and because Triple Canopy had lost the contract to
that's right
to Blackwater, and so I came home for about a month or so. I think a month and a half, and I got looking for the next contract. So I got a 1 month contract for training Iraqi SWAT teams. And so I flew back over to Baghdad, started training Iraqi SWAT teams. That 1 month contract went into 2 months. Then it went into 3 months, and then I got a contract to do PSD. So it was like a 6 month deployment.
Right.
Went home for a month, come back, and I stayed there. We had our camp had about 900 Iraqis on it, and we had the emergency response unit that worked for the Ministry of Interior, training those guys up. They were going out doing hits every night. Our SWAT teams, we'd bring in SWAT teams from all over Iraq, train them up. They'd go out and do hits.
Was that ever dangerous? I mean, that might be a naive question, man. But that's from the heart, dude.
Okay, I'm gonna answer this question like this. Okay, so imagine I'm standing out on this range. It's 130 degrees out in the summer, so you got that, and I have 30 Iraqis who have limited skill sets or varied skill sets with weapons, and you're teaching them to fire, and you're probably 3 instructors up on the range. You always have one sitting in the back kind of watching everything, and his job was to make sure that if any one of those guys turned around and shot you, that you took care of them.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
That's how that shit rolls, dog.
So that's not the danger I was referring to, but wow, that's a curveball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, hey, man, if these bastards shoot us, you shoot them.
Or the objective is to keep a guy on overwatch. So if you saw a muzzle like swing to the rear that wasn't supposed to be, it was like you're gonna fucking put him down.
And the thing with that is this is what I would tell all of them.
That's fucked up, man.
So what you tell them, whether it's your intent or not, is I would always tell them, I'd be like, okay, if you're going to try to shoot me, the guy back there is going to shoot you and the guy to the left and right of you.
Yep.
And they all look at each other like, uh-oh. So basically what that does is really what you're trying to do is get them to understand that you make sure the guy to your left and right, he ain't going to freaking put your life in jeopardy.
That has to be a mind fuck.
For what?
For you, the instructor, or
no?
For Mark.
You used to it. You
didn't roll up day one used to it. I mean, there had to be like a breaking in period. Like
that's true. Yeah.
Like, hey man, like you guys serious, man? These fuckers might turn around and shoot at us.
It's I mean, I did 12 years in the Marine Corps, and I mean part of that was in the Middle East, so I kind of understood their culture and the way they are, and I mean, it's like, but it's kind of like in law enforcement. And this is, I think, where the skill set of coming from law enforcement is if in law enforcement, whether I worked in a small town or not. I mean, if I pulled a car over, car's got 5 or 6 guys in it, and they're either running drugs or drunk or whatever. I mean, you're the only guy. My backup on the average time was 35, 45 minutes away. I had to deal with whatever I had to deal with on my own. So it's just, most of us think that cops are what we see in all the cop shows. There's a case, you pull a DUI guy over, there's 3 cars there backing you up. when you're in rural communities or smaller communities, I give more kudos to those guys because you got to deal with whatever it is on your own because your backup is 45 minutes away. And, I mean, people are, POS is POS. Doesn't matter what country you come from.
Do you know what that means, Baker?
Point of sale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, point of sale.
Yeah. Well, I think you get used to it. I mean, you really do. You get used to it in the sense of...
It's amazing what you get used to.
It's amazing what you get used to because I would shoot against the guys like first day, and then we would do like because you'd demo stuff. You'd have to demo stuff, but you'd shoot against them. And then if we were doing sims or anything else, we would mask up, and I would have them have a rifle, and I had a pistol. And I would draw and shoot them before they could rotate their selector switch to fire, come up and shoot me with paint because I wanted everybody to see that I would kill them before they killed me.
Yep.
As a demonstration purpose in the sense of this is how fast you guys could get. Check this out. Like I'm this super proficient. But really what I was showing everybody was I'm going to kill your fastest guy before he has the opportunity to kill me.
And didn't one of those guys want to date you or something?
I'm sure most of them at one point. I've got a very attractive demeanor, But no,
well,
I think,
and he was what you were in your latter 20s in.
Yeah, I mean 26. I mean I was in Kuwait. I was in Kuwait training Kuwaitis for several months, and I mean those guys like. They wanted to take me camping for sure.
Everyone paid attention.
They wanted to eat cake with me in the desert. You know what I'm saying? That's what they kept saying. That's what they kept saying. And I really thought they just wanted to go
camping
out to the desert and eat cake. And I was like, this is fucking weird. Why do you guys go to the desert and eat cake? I think what it loosely translates to is, let's go to my house so I can put my cock in your ass.
Yeah, but you said you were like, man, what is this guy talking about? And then they were like, no, he wants to go camping with you.
Yes, I know. That's...
Just the two of you camping. You're like, I'm not going.
No, that didn't make sense to me. I'm like, I was sitting there working out the logistics. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I'm not going to drive into the desert and camp with you. Like, that's dumb as fuck. I don't want to do that. And they're like, no, you're not getting it. Like, he doesn't want to just like camp in the desert with you, because there was a certain portion of me. I'm like, oh, there's some like cool shit out there. Maybe he's got some like wadis and some stuff that's out there. Like maybe I can see some Petra, but no, wasn't talking about that. We wouldn't have gone camping per se. We would have driven out on a desolate road, and I would have got plowed by an Arab. But
you
that's
weren't
neither
having
here nor there. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe he's wanting me to plow him. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it would have been the other.
One of the two. Who knows?
One of the two, but I know for a certain he was not talking about going out into the desert to eat cake on a camping trip. That is not what he wanted to do.
So you're in Iraq teaching Iraqi SWATs.
Mm-hmm.
When'd you make the move over to the other side?
Well, we had a PSD team there too, and so before that I moved over to the PSD team for about a year or so, and then I got the opportunity to I moved into the green zone. I was a mentor / security advisor to one of the former prime ministers of Iraq, Dr. Ayad Alawi.
Yeah, Ayad.
That was interesting because you know where Assassin's Gate is.
Yep.
I lived outside of Assassin Gates. I didn't live in the green zone. For me and a South African and about 4 Kurdish guys had a house outside of Assassin's Gate, and just down the street from us is where Dr. Ayad Alawi, he was one of the former prime ministers, had his place, and that was interesting. I mean, that was a good time, really. I mean, I kind of think it was safer there because that's when they were rocketing the embassy all the time.
Yeah.
So if I lived out there, and if I was living out in town, and it's funny because people are like, how in the hell can you live out in town in Baghdad and it'd be safer than living at the embassy or inside the green zone. Well, the rockets went over top of us.
Right. I knew a ton of guys that did that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the, the Brits and the Aussies and a bunch of those dudes, they lived out in the city and lived on the economy, so to speak. So, you could build nice little compounds. And, like, it was legit. Plus, you would have, like, cooks and all kinds of amazing stuff. And trust me when I say this, not every Iraqi can cook. Like, they would be like, yes, I'm an amazing cook. And then you'd get this dude in, and he's like, throwing tomato paste in a fucking pan and heating it up. And it's like, this is your soup. It's good.
Tomato sauce or spaghetti
tomato
sauce. Or tomato soup.
Yeah.
Would you like to go camping?
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, that's the way it looked.
But it was because you're right. The other thing, I don't know if this is good or bad to all the doctors out there, but I think I pretty much took Cipro with like every meal that I ate that they cooked.
Yeah.
For those listening, including myself, that don't know what that is, what is Cipro?
Cipro is an antibiotic. So if you get a stomach, let's say you eat something that has bacteria in it that would cause you to have explosive diarrhea or explosive vomiting, Cipro kind of helps prevent a lot of that.
Okay, so for those of you listening, I'm not a doctor, but I would be willing to bet that taking it every single day with every meal probably...
That is not good at all for your body. Neither is taking doxycycline, Advil, Cipro on a regular basis, like just basically living on all of it.
And so why is because, I mean, when you have your Iraqi cooks and, I mean, their digestive system is different because they've been raised on things that are different. And you don't have, they don't always wash their hands the cleanest. They don't always take care of the utensils and everything.
I've heard they have really dirty hands over there.
Well, yes, they do. It just happens to do with the cultural idea of how to... I guess clean your backside after you visit the toilet.
You can say it, Mark. This is an adult podcast.
Okay.
You know
what?
Seen Evan's
There's
face.
a reason why they shake hands with their right hand and not with their left. Their left hand is to wipe their ass. They take a jug of water, pour it down their ass after they take a crap, and they use their hand to make sure that it's clean.
I don't know if I look it, but like the back of my throat is swelling with vomica and I'm about to gag.
Why?
I mean, it's repulsive.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there are a lot of things which is, Mark I think is spot on. Which in Iraq, well, one, there wasn't a lot of clean water too. Like you'd have to use bottled water, and then I mean, I've got a ton of stories where. One of my favorite stories, actually, I was in Basra. I can't remember if we said this one last time, but I was in Basra. And the Iraqis invited us over to eat. The Iraqi, the military guys, like the generals and officers. And then we were like, great, this is awesome. Let's go over there and eat. And we lived right next to this river called the El Shat Arab, which is this giant, muddy, disgusting river. And then they had little shit canals that flowed down into the El Shat Arab, right? And in Basra, there were a bunch of them. Okay, got it. So we go, and they present the food, and it's a white fish, like a giant white fish, like a carp. And
delicious.
So there is one rule that I live by over there, and that was I do not eat fish off the local economy. Like, that's one rule. Not the only one, but that's just one that I live by. And all the other dudes are like, this is really good. Oh my gosh. This is, an amazing carp. Hey, and I was like, hey, so where did you catch this? And they're like, because everybody's like, everybody thought they caught it in the river. And the dude goes, no, behind the house in the canal, I'm like, it is a sewage ditch, not a canal. It is a sewage ditch that is more sewage than water. And they yanked that fucking whitefish carp, it's a carp out of that thing, and served it to everyone. And all the Iraqis were just like, dude, this is epic. I love it. It's so good. And the Americans are like, and I was trying to explain this to one of the Americans going over there, was because SF guys, and he was an SF guy. SF guys, like, they like to build rapport, and they like to, be very respectful, as you should, of the local culture and customs. But then they're always like wanting to win favor by, going by the local customs. Like, I want to drink your tea and show respect, and it's like, but then after a while, when you get some like length under your feet, you're like, I'm not drinking the fucking tea. Do you want to get paid or do you not want to get paid? Do you want to get paid or do you not want to get paid? There's no tea. I don't give a fuck about chai. I don't give a fuck about your family, actually. Get down to the brass tacks, motherfucker. Let's go. However, guys would go and they were still in this mode like, hey, I got to like win the hearts and minds, man. They ate this fish, and I'm sitting there going, I've been in this country since like we opened it. Like, I cracked the can. I've been there pretty much the whole time. This is probably 2008. So by that time, this is like 5 years on a reg. 2008. I'm done with this like winning hearts and minds shit. I'm like, don't give a fuck. Won't drink the tea, won't eat the fish. Do you got anything packaged?
Not even going.
You got like a soda with a fucking top on it that's been sealed. That's it, right? They get back. And I'm the only dude that didn't eat. Like, I didn't eat bread. Whatever. I'm not eating any of it. And Basra was fucking disgusting. Like, everything about the city was fucking disgusting. And everybody's like, man, I can't fucking believe you didn't eat that fish.
Until about an hour later, right?
Exactly. Every one of those fucking dudes, like, were purging every fluid they could fucking out of their bodies.
Out of both ends.
Yeah, out of both ends. And I was like, that's why I didn't eat the fish. Because it came out of a fucking sewage ditch. It was undercooked. Like, I'm fairly certain you could still see like a little bit of sludge on the bottom of the fucking...
It was still swimming.
They washed it off. Like, this is what they would do. They'd like yank this thing out of the sewage ditch, and then they'd take the hose that was coming out of the sewage ditch to wash it off. Like, there you go, man. This fucking fish is clean. Let's cook it up. Let's cook it up for them whiteys.
Two things. My favorite part of our friendship in these podcasts is listening up until now. We're going to pivot. Is up until now is like, hearing about like gunfights and war and shit. And Dave can vouch for that. I love to ask these types of questions. We are now going to shift launch code to talking about shit stories for the rest of our friendships. Hey man, you got any nasty shit stories to share with me?
I got a great shit story.
Let's
I'll go
hear
into
it.
my favorite shit story.
I am so excited.
I had been living with my guys. I had a nice, hospitable QRF force. We were super busy. We were doing a lot of work, and I've been living with my dudes. I went into the embassy to get coffee because we'd taken our gun trucks over, and we had a big line of gun trucks, and I was pouring coffee out of a batch brewer, which you're familiar with, and I went to fart, and I completely blew like rooster-tailed fucking mud all over in my pants. Once I realized it was shit, I was so fucking tired and didn't give a fuck, I just kept shitting. And because I was like, I'm pouring my coffee, I'm just going to keep shitting. I don't give a fuck. The ambassador comes up behind me and is like, is that good coffee? And I turned around and I said, Shit your pants. This is good coffee.
It was your favorite pair of cry pants, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you said like for like
Yeah.
years you had those pants, but there was like a permanent little shit
It was a
stain.
permanent stain because I know that was the beginning of me not having a solid stool for 2 to 3 years.
And I remember after you told that story, I was like, "Hey man, you ever get like in a gunfight with shit staining your pants?" You're like, "Fuck yeah."
No, I didn't have a clean pair of fucking pants for like 2 years. I couldn't push a fart until like literally I couldn't push a fart until probably 2016, where I was like, I'm totally cool with this. Like I'm like, yeah, I'm confident this is just gas. That there was a time where in my life when I contemplated wearing adult diapers because I couldn't fucking I didn't have a hard stool, and I was shitting my pants more than I think my daughter, that's a 1, was shitting their pants. And I just had like a permanent red mark in these fucking cry pants. Still have them today. Still have the pride of that fucking stain down the center of my pants.
That's one of those things you got to save. I mean, it's like memories. You're gonna pass that down to your kids and your grandkids.
No, those go in a shadow box.
My wife,
My daddy was a war hero.
My wife went through my pants after we first got married, and she's like, "Did you like sit in the same like ink pile in all your pants?" And I was like, "No, that's a shit stain on all my pants."
Honey, would you marry me?
She's like,
this is what you got. This is what the next 30 years and 40 years is going to be like with me.
if I would have known that, like all my pants, like they just all had fucking marks in them.
Just a man pond back there.
Well, I mean, at that point, you just don't care. You know, you're just like, fuck it.
So, going back to the story about your guys that ate that medium rare shit fish, as Dave Reardon just texted me. The thing that I don't really ever feel sorry for anyone but I have empathy for those guys because I know I can see you walking around that fucking house in your little strut. You know, you put your hands on your hips and looking in rooms. Hey man, how you doing in there, buddy? Like, did you torment those guys after that?
I mean, I know myself, and you know me relatively well. I am 100% positive that I did, but it was so insignificant to me, I don't remember it. But I am 1,000% sure that I was like, "What's up, dog? You like that fish now? Huh? How's that fish? How's that whitefish doing for you?" But
We had this guy. His wife would always send over cookies and the care package and all that. He was my roommate when I was first with TC, and so anytime he got a care package, she would send him a pair of her panties. Okay. Well, first thing he did was put the panties on.
I knew that was coming, damn it.
And then he, being the good team guy he is, he wanted to make sure everybody could share in the cookies. So he'd walk down the hall and go to every room and knock on the door. And he'd walk in and he'd be like, "Hey, anybody want cookies?" And he's wearing a thong. It was,
Since we're now all sharing stories, do you ever shit your pants over there?
Well, of course.
Or do you have any stories to share like Evans?
So, yeah, similar. I mean, so when you're running on a PSD team, we're going to take the ambassador or a consul general or one of the consulate guys, and we're going to head up north. Let's go. We're going to go we're starting in Bakuba, Iraq, and we're going to go to, let's say, Dahuk or to Erbil. I mean, you're talking.
it's a long drive.
Yeah, 8-9 hour drive.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't stop the whole way, okay? Because if you stop, then you're not a moving target, you're a sitting target, and makes you more vulnerable. So you learn very quickly, one is that you make sure you expel any and all liquid or semi-liquid or semi-solids out of your body as soon as possible. And because you're going down the road, the one thing I got really, really talented at being able to drive about 90 to 100 mile an hour because I was one of the drivers. And if I had to take a leak, be able to freaking pull it out and piss in a bottle without spilling a bit.
At a hundo.
At a hundo. Oh, yeah.
Evan, you got that skill set?
I don't know.
And before you answer, anyone listening, don't try this at home.
No.
You're not a trained professional.
No.
Do not try to take a
No.
piss in a fucking bottle going 100. Don't try to piss in a bottle going 75. If you're going to do it, make sure you're doing the speed limit. But Evan, now you can answer, please.
This is a public safety announcement.
Yeah, I mean, I have pissed in so many Gatorade bottles driving that I mean, yes, like it's a skill. I mean, you just put your dick in a Gatorade bottle and you fucking pull the trigger.
At
like,
100
it's
miles an
not-
hour, though.
Driving.
Well, yeah.
While driving.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just put it this way. I think where I would leave if I was going on a road trip, even when I was home, and I would fill up a tank of gas and I would just grab a Gatorade and be like, well, I'll just piss in this fucking bottle. Even when I was back and I could stop on the fucking side of the road because it was easier for me just to piss in the Gatorade bottle than it was to.
Yeah.
That's nowhere near as exciting as Mark's story.
Well, it's just, I don't think it was that significant in my catalog of memories.
We need to get in there. We can get those synapses firing. I mean, I've got questions now. You've
Yeah.
opened a whole new Pandora's box with questions from me.
I like it when the gunner behind you is pissing, like because he's standing up in the turret and he's like pissing in a fucking Gatorade bottle that's like right next to your ear, and he could turn around, right? He could just turn around, but he's not because he wants to put it like right on your fucking ear and have the hot warmth of the Gatorade bottle like touch, and yeah. I mean,
All human beings.
no, it turns you into like, and I'm exaggerating it only a tiny bit, but it does make you a bit of an animal for a while. Like it really does. Like Mark was talking about the dude in the panties, and I've got this video where me and my buddy, we were in Baghdad, and we were with a group of Australian SAS guys. And we were getting like half in the bag. So we had gone, there was a liquor store on Biap. And do you remember the liquor store?
Yes.
Or was that the Green Zone? Did you have to go to the Green Zone? I
No,
can't
there was
remember.
one. There was one in the green zone.
Yeah. And there was one in Biap.
And there was one in Biap.
Yeah.
And they were both ran by a Kurdish guy.
Right.
He owned both of them.
He was making money hand over fist. That fucking dude probably retired. But so we had gone and got, a bunch of beers, and we were, weren't doing something the next day. And so I get this video of my buddy Chuck opening beers with a frag. So he's like popping the top off of it with the top part of a frag grenade, for the civilian folks that don't know. Like that would make anybody completely shit their pants in any scenario. Like, I'm just gonna pull my frag out and open beers all night with it as we get all fucked up and start, playing rugby and whatever else we were gonna do till like 2:00 in the morning. But that was comfortable, like an AT-4, which is a rocket basically. It was like propping a door open. Your frags and rifles and everything else are right in and around your bunks, and you just get used to living life around like high explosives and being shot at, and living on the range with dudes that might kill you, and it's just like, all right, man, this is another day. And I would be naked a lot in my hooch. And it's like your little hooch. It's your little island. And so dudes would come and knock on the door, and I would answer the door like completely naked. And they thought that was a little bit strange. But I was like, this is my island, man. Like, this is my home. Don't knock on my door.
If you don't want to see me naked.
Yeah, 'cause
it's
they're
all
like-
on you. I mean, you must be wanting to see me naked because you came and knocked on my door, and this is what you're going to see when when I answer the door.
You know the drill.
Right?
My buddy JB, who came out a couple years ago just to spend a few days, he's
that
like,
type of came out.
yeah, he didn't come out. He came out from Australia. He's like, man, I was like, JB, but you come over to my room every morning, but how they outgun you is this. Knock on your door, you answer it naked, and they just walk in because they're just like, whatever, and they start talking to you and like sit down. And so that's how they call you your bluff, because then you become more uncomfortable because they're not uncomfortable with it. Hey, what's up, mate? You know, can I come in? Yeah, okay. You know, and you're like standing there naked. So then it becomes like a one-upsmanship type game where eventually what's going to happen is that maybe he's going to start taking his clothes off, and then you're both going to be standing there naked in your hooch, just talking, having like a conversation. But it becomes a game as to I wouldn't even call it gay chicken. It's like, how can I make you uncomfortable? That's the game.
You are literally opening the robe right now, because I thought I was on to you before. I'm really on to you right now.
Yeah.
I got
exactly
you.
what
I
you mean when you
I
say
got your
you're
number.
on to him. I mean, we're talking about him being naked, and you want to be on to him.
We're not. No,
I'm just
Mark,
sure. Just for clarification.
I'm not inviting him to go camping.
Okay.
It's different.
No cake?
It's no cake.
No cake, no
We're in
camping.
this nice room.
Yeah, but it was. It's funny. Do you ever work with Sexy
Yes.
and Harvey? Do you remember? Yeah. So
Yes.
these dudes to this day, they we had a person on in the camp that would pick the locks of your room and come in and shit in your garbage can. And to this day, those guys probably still believe that was me. Like, they probably still believe that was me because they kept on coming in and blaming me like, God damn it, Evan, you shit in my garbage can again. Like, what the fuck? And I'm like, guys, I didn't do it. I don't know what you're talking about. And like, eventually everybody's garbage cans were out of their rooms. They couldn't even keep them in their rooms because the mad shitter was shitting in people's garbage cans.
Who was it?
I think it was one. I don't know who it was, to be honest with you. Like, any one of those guys was capable of that, and they all had pretty good poker faces. So,
Yeah, but
like,
what does that say about you that they all thought it was you? When you have some like introspection, like, hey man, maybe I should not do weird things.
no, I took that as a compliment.
No, yeah. I mean, if you got, are you kidding me? I mean, you know, and I suppose maybe some of these stories should probably be not told, but you know what? You got to tell them because people, you know, I mean, you know, you're living every day where you're going to, I mean, the end of the day, you don't know if you're going to be dead or alive. You just live life to its fullest. And I mean, part of that whole camaraderie thing is that frat party kind of, that frat maternity, whatever attitude. And you're just living to live because you might lose your buddy and you know what you remember? Man, that dude used to shit in my freaking trash can.
Yeah.
Or he'd leave me a freaking upper decker or freaking
A hot pocket. You
Yeah.
know what a hot pocket is? You get a pull-out couch, take a dump in it, close it back up.
I like that. Yeah.
I
So
did
those
not know that's
listening-
what it was. I thought it was something else and not the edible thing. But
For those listening, you can do that, and it's okay.
I mean,
Well, and one of the guys that I worked with used to always do this to dudes where you would come into his room and he would always instantly like sit back down at his computer and he'd be talking to you like I'm talking to you right now, right? And he'd just like reach over and be doing something on his computer and then he'd press play and there's like he's like gay porn would be going off in the back on his computer as he's like he's facing over here, you're facing him, and then he would call you a homophobe when you're like, can you turn that off? It's like, why are you a homophobe, dude? Don't be a homophobe. It was sublime. Like, they're great. They're funny. Like, he's a funny dude. He still is today. He's a fucking hilarious guy.
You still do some of that, not that level of chicanery, but like you engage in tomfoolery at the office.
Yeah, but not at that level. Like, you're like pro. Like, you're fucking pro status when you're engaged in that type of activity.
But you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I took the Rescue Randy doll. You remember those fucking things? The the 180-pound mannequins that you have to drive away.
Yep.
And I dressed Randy up with clothes, and then would pull his pants down and then like flip him over like the side of somebody's bed and leave a bunch of tissues and lotion on him. And then they would come into your room, and then you would like you'd come in right after them, and you'd be like, dude, what are you doing with Rescue Randy? Why are you doing that, man? What the fuck? Rescue Randy got worked over pretty good.
But you brought some of that bullshit back to the States with you.
That ain't bullshit. That's just fun. That's just good stuff.
But you brought some. So, you want to tell the story about cutting grass? You want me to do it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, So Mark, I went home to see my dad one time, and he was gone. So, and his lawn was fucking long. So I was like, I'm just gonna mow the lawn for him. He'll be home pretty soon. So I just stripped down naked in his front yard.
I love it. I knew where it was going.
With nothing but my tennis shoes. I was mowing his lawn.
And your dad pulls up.
And my dad pulls up, and he's like, "What the fuck is wrong with this dude?" Yeah.
I just love that. That is so awesome. Hey, Dad.
I was like, "What, dude?" And he's like, "Man, what the hell are you doing?" I was like, "Dude,
Isn't
I'm
it
doing
obvious? I'm mowing your lawn."
Exactly. It's exactly. Do you not see? I'm mowing your lawn. Like, talk about, looking a gift horse in the mouth. I think that's how that goes.
Why'd you let the grass get so long,
Yeah.
Dad?
Yeah, this is your fault.
You know how you could keep me from being out here naked mowing your lawn? Keep your grass short.
Yeah. Cut your grass, you lazy motherfucker. Or some naked dude will start mowing it. Like, beggars can't be choosers, dude. Mm-hmm. So, you and we've like Iraq is those are good stories. So
it is.
When you came over, when did you come over to the office? What year did you go over there?
It was in 2009.
Oh, okay.
Because I came over initially. It was I'd gotten picked up for mobile.
Yeah.
With one company, and then that company lost the contract. So they're like, well, I know this is what you want to do, but we don't have that. So if you want to come work for us, you got to be static. And it's like, well, fuck. That ain't what I want to do. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get where you want to go. And so I went and did that. And that's Train Up. I got picked up right away at Train Up for that. For the direct program. It just hadn't fully started yet, so I had to go do a couple tours, a couple rotations on the static side, and that was it. And that's kind of broke me into the Culinary Institute of America and the shenanigans that go on there. Right, it was interesting at VVIP.
Oh yeah. So, Small World. My ODA were the guys that cleared the VVIP. On the initial invasion, so so when I came back, I was like, oh shit, I've been here before. I remember this place. Yeah, I took all the faux gold soap dishes out of this.
Because you guys, when I was at training the Iraqis, you guys had the compound right next to us, didn't you? Were you there? Yeah, there's Area 5.
No, I think that was Area 4? That was Area 4. And I was on the other side with the Australians.
Okay, because you guys were doing the FID mission out of there, and then we had the same kind of thing from the contract side. And
I remember that. I remember you guys were a little bit further down the road.
That was and really from I was talking to a buddy of mine today, and that had done, two guys that came out here, and we were talking about that mission from a contract side. We called it the ERU then, Emergency Response Unit. Then it changed to the ERB, which was the Emergency Response Battalion. And then it got, after we were done with it, it changed to the ERD, which was the division. That division was the Iraqis that went in year and a half ago, whatever, and cleared Mosul.
Oh, wow.
That was the one probably successful, really big successful FID thing that from the contract side. And still, there's some of those guys that still keep in touch with I know a lot of the guys do. I mean, it was really kind of funny because they had a Facebook page.
Oh, really?
While they were clearing Mosul.
That's cool.
They would post, the guys that got killed, their guys that got killed as an eye, that's their thing. But they had some interesting pictures you'd find.
I can
of
imagine
them going through Mosul and kind of helping take care of ISIS.
Right.
So it was kind of good just when we were reminiscing, not to get too deep into things, but that was something that came out of, a positive thing that came out of that with a lot of the Iraqis, because a lot of people don't give them a lot of credit in certain things, but and they don't deserve a lot, but every now and then, a blind squirrel to find a nut.
Yeah. Well, that was probably the only time I've been pining to go back to that area of the world. I was like, because Mosul, I worked that city a lot.
Yep.
It was a great city actually to work. And watching those guys clear it, I was like, man, because you wanted to do that the entire time. You're like, dude, I want to just mount up and go start on one end and just clear out the rats, just fucking clear them all out. And it was interesting to watch it unfold.
Yeah.
And so you transitioned out of Iraq and you went to Libya.
Well, while I was waiting for train up to go, I did a 4-month stint we kind of built an airline out of the UAE. We used to fly IL-76s and AN-12s out of a little place on the south of the peninsula called Fujairah. Just handling military cargo, moving it around for that purpose. But it was fun. I mean, it was a whole different kind of aspect. It was Ukrainian pilots, Russian pilots flying IL-76 aircraft, and it's their idea of. Well, an example is they didn't change the tires on the plane until you could see the wires coming
copper,
through.
Yeah.
But
or the
one of the
metal
pilots,
weave.
his name was Yurgi.
Yeah.
Yurgi, every time we'd get up to 40,000 feet, he'd come back and he'd be like, Oz, 2 fingers vodka? Sure, 2 fingers vodka.
Yeah.
And when I'm saying 2 fingers vodka for y'all out there, it's not like two fingers together. It's my index finger and my pinky finger, and it was a double.
Yeah.
And I guess one of my bucket list things is because we were not a U.S. company,
right?
It was Kabul Air. We could get permission to fly instead of having to fly out of the UAE or Kuwait and go all the way down, go around Iran and come back up through Baluchistan and then come back into Afghanistan. We'd be able to go fly straight over.
Right.
And I was sitting up there one day and he asked me, he says, "Hey, I need to take a nap. Oz, come up here." I'm like, "What?" He says, "Here, you take this seat." Puts me in the pilot seat. I'm like, "I can't fly a plane." He says, "Oh, you're not flying. We got it on autopilot and co-pilot's here." I look over at the co-pilot and he's asleep. I'm like, "Hey, what the hell? How bad could this end?" Right?
No, yeah, there's no way that's going to end badly.
Right. So it's like my bucket list, flying an IL-76 over Iran. I'm like, I don't think too many people are going to do that in their lifetime.
No.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
I love that. I love that aspect of when you're working in, especially when you're doing any form of logistics overseas that require aircraft in those countries. You've got a ton of like South African and Russian pilots.
Yep.
And I landed at Antonov out in the middle of fucking nowhere one time, and it was so interesting because like that's a huge aircraft.
That thing is huge. And 3 engines on each side, I think, or 4 engines on each side.
Massive.
I mean, it's.
And I was like, they're like, "Yeah, we can land it." I'm like, "Okay, great." And dude comes out of the back, like he was walking out down the ramp, and I was like, "Oh." He had grease all over his hands. Like fucking grease was all over his hands. And he was eating a hard-boiled egg. And he's peeling a hard-boiled egg and like he's got grease all over this fucking egg. Like it's a clean white hard-boiled egg. he's got grease all over it. And he's just like stuffing this fucking thing in his mouth. And he pulls like another hard-boiled egg out of his pocket and does the same fucking thing. He's getting grease all over these fucking eggs. And I'm watching him eat him. I'm like, hey, man, are you the mechanic? And he's like, no, I'm the pilot in Russian. I'm the pilot mechanic. And I was like, okay. And it was so fucking interesting to see like just what they're doing with, you know, helicopters and aircraft and their level of like precaution and safety and everything. You're like, these motherfuckers, like,
oh, they're crazy.
They're fixing this shit in the air. They're like, I'll take off. We'll fix it in the air. It's not a big deal.
Why don't you peel the egg for him?
There's so many reasons why I wouldn't do that. Like,
you don't ever peel another man's eggs.
Why didn't I comb his hair with my fingers? I don't know. Like, I'm not touching another man's greasy ass fucking egg that he pulls out of his pocket.
I think the fact that he had a second egg in his pocket fucked you up harder than the grease.
Yeah, because I'm like, this is fucking disgusting. I mean, that egg was like, it had black fingerprints all over it as he's like shoving it into his mouth. And I couldn't help but just be mesmerized by this whole sight, just like kind of mouth agape. This is a strange scenario I'm in. I am like an American with a $500,000 like armored car in the middle of nowhere, talking to a Russian eating a hard-boiled egg with grease all over it. Like, this is a fucking weird life we're living right now.
Oh, it was. I mean, it's like, you know, we would pull into somewhere and we'd pick up cargo, and it's you know, here in America, I mean, hell, they make you, if on the airplanes, if you're sitting up front and the plane ain't balanced, they ask you to go to the back. You know, they always do that. Russians don't do that. They're like, because they get paid by the amount of weight they haul. So up front, at the front of those aisle 76s, there's this wooden bench that folds down. It takes up about 3 or 4 feet out. They'll fold that thing up, and they'll shove cargo in there as far as they can and get as much as they can on there. And it's like, hey, are we okay with this being balanced like this? I mean, because it really doesn't look like it's how it's supposed to be. No, it's okay, Oz. It's okay. We do this thousands of times. And so where I usually rode, though, it was the most comfortable spot. I bought one of those cheap little Afghani mats. It was about 2 inches thick and threw it up on top of the cargo. And I mean, you don't put a seatbelt on. You sleep up on top of the cargo and just, hey, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Let's go. And but you know when, I mean, because I've had some hard landings. I mean, things happen, but when they get scared and start running around looking for something wrong, you know something really bad is going to happen.
You ever see anything on a plane or loaded on a plane that you were like, what the fuck is this thing doing here? Anything you're allowed to talk about?
No, not really seen too much like that. I mean, it's and to caveat everybody, we were just a bunch of guys that kind of, I wasn't directly involved with those who started the airline, but it wasn't like anything that had to do with the U.S. government. It was just a way to make money.
Did you enjoy your time doing it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would get up in the morning. We'd leave at about 4 o'clock in the morning. We'd fly. I mean, we'd make 8 or 10 stops in 8 or 9 different places. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Uzbek. I mean, if it ended in Stan, I always joke about it. I says, if the country ends in Stan, I've probably been there. I mean, all over the place. And you'd fly for 15, 18 hours and come back and sleep for a few hours, get up and do the same thing the next day. And it was your days off you'd spend sitting there. There was a Hilton sitting right on. You'd sit at the Hilton on the beach and sit there, and you're looking at Iran right across. I mean, literally, you can see Iran, and you can see all the ships, the oil ships going back and forth, and you're just sitting there thinking, "Wow, it's just kind of weird." Kind of weird. Another story, real quick. I wasn't on this plane, but a buddy of mine was on the IL-76, and it was the Russian pilot. Had landed into I think it was Bagram, and Bagram had a U.S. aircraft came in, and I think something about cargo shifted. It was one of the bigger planes, and it wrecked, and so the runway was fouled. So, as a U.S. Contractor, I had a CAT card and all that, so I could get off the plane and go anywhere on the base. Pilots and crew chief and all that, they're Russians. They can't get off the plane. They're not allowed to leave the plane. It's wintertime in Bagram. Okay, so we asked for a what is it? An IPU. You hook it up to the plane it's an energy unit. You hook it up to the plane. It's a generator basically. It's going to allow them to stay warm. Well, it worked for the first day, and then it kind of broke down, and then we got it fixed. It worked for the second day. I'd have to go get food for him and bring it in, and pilot started getting frustrated because he's like, or he was telling my buddy, he said, "Hey, we can fly out of here." He's like, I'm like, "No, he said, they're not going to let you." He says, "I can make it." It's like the runway's fouled. He's like, "No, I flew in and out of here hundreds of times back in the 80s when we had invaded Afghanistan." So this is a Russian pilot now flying for us that had been in and out of Bagram back in when they had invaded Afghanistan, and they were tired of being cold and all of this, and he finally said that he was going to go, and he told the guy that was flying with him, the U.S. guy, you either get on or we're going. Jumped on the plane, and he made it out of there. I mean, and the runway is about half as long as it should have been, and I'll say the Air Force was a little pissed off about that. They said, "You guys are never going to fly back here. Ain't going to do this. Ain't no way." Flew into Fujairah, pulled it into a hangar, repainted the aircraft and the tail number, and about a week later flew back in there.
It's epic. It's so efficient in so many different ways, and then it's so non-efficient in so many ways because you're like, man, we can't do this. Can't do this all the time, but like, now and again, you're like, yeah, that works.
Well, and you're 100. It's like when I was living out in town. Anytime I lived out in town, like especially in Iraq and Afghanistan or something like that, in some of those places, you can get away with a lot once.
Yep.
You can get away with a little twice. You start going and doing the same thing the third time, that's when you get it caught in the door, so to speak. I mean, that's when because you're starting to set a pattern and they start understanding and seeing that.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So you rotate in. So when we go from
yeah, we're gonna finally get to that.
So you rotate into Libya, and I think the story's so well known, and you've said it so many times. I'm more interested in kind of your post experience and dealing with vets now, as to you've got a TBI, and I'm sure you talk to a lot of guys that have had the same type of injury, and you're getting ready to do something I think that's pretty cutting edge.
It is. I've been lucky. So there's a nonprofit. It's called Time for a Hero, and they're doing some stuff just to help with the TBI, and you can't get it done here in the U.S. because it hasn't been approved.
Right.
Parts of it haven't been approved by the FDA.
Okay.
So there's some risk in that, I guess. I don't know. FDA has got. You see a whole lot of people in this country die from a lot of stuff that they get infections at hospitals. So I don't know how bad it can be anywhere else. But what it is it's stem cell therapy.
Got it.
And they go in and they take out stem cells from your body. And anybody out there, if you're going to do something like this, understand what you're doing. Talk to the people that have had it, and make sure that you understand everything that they're doing. My biggest concerns were, okay, is there any manipulation of the stem cells after you get them out of my body before you put them back in? Because they're my stem cells, so I'm okay with that. And nope, there's nothing. They go in and they do liposuction. So also after next week, I should be a little thinner around the middle. I'm back to when I'm like in my 30s instead of my 50s. Yeah. And they take that out, and then they separate the stem cells, and then they're going to inject them back in via IV, and they give you a drug that's going to open up the blood-brain barrier, and that's where the part of it that's probably most dangerous is in with the FDA. And it goes, the stem cells, they're your own body. That's how your body heals itself anyways.
Right.
So a lot of the guys I talk to that have had it have, your sense of smell, your short-term memory comes back. And
wow.
It's all those little things that really what makes life frustrating, And part of mine also is, I've been under the gas 15 times.
Right.
So every time you go under for a surgery, the effects of anesthesia affect your short-term memory. So, for me, this was being chosen by this group, and all of this has been phenomenal that they're going to do it. And there's also a group out there that it's called Veteran Airlift Command.
Okay.
What they do is there's people that have donated their flight hours and time,
right,
if they own planes, and for warriors and families that can't get to where they need to, they can always go on and apply to get that flight taken care of. It's usually, if a guy's injured over in Lunchstuhl, he's in Lunchstuhl in Germany, and the family can't get there, the family can't afford it, you can go on and you can fill out a form, and a lot of times there's somebody will volunteer they'll donate their plane to get you there.
I guess you can you donate Sky Miles and stuff?
I don't think they do that, but there are groups that do that. People, it's easy. Shadow Warriors Project, the one I have. I mean, there's ways that we can set that up where you can donate those miles, and then if we need to get somebody that's somewhere, then we can do that. There's a lot of guys that it's hard for us to bank those because it's usually we would put that out there if that need is there.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause I say that. I mean, I've never even thought about this. I've got hundreds of thousands of Sky Miles. I don't ever use them because if I use them, I lose my Delta status. So if anyone knows anyone that, any organizations that can use Sky Miles, or they just ping me, hit me up, hey, man, this guy needs a flight here, I'd shoot me a DM on my Instagram. I'm more than happy to help.
Man.
I know some of the airlines, their people will donate their miles and things like that as well.
Right.
I know American Airlines has done that down out of Texas because they're hubbed out of Dallas, and it's just this group does. It's easier because it's that. It's that last minute. The last thing a family, if they've got a loved one that's either been injured or killed, and you're trying to get to them, the last thing the family needs to deal with is having to worry about going through TSA and getting flights and all the other people. It's emotional. It's it's really nice that there's people out there that donate their private planes and their pilots to fly them there. They'll get people to see their loved ones if they're injured or or getting for funerals or whatever the case may be. But so it's been pretty cool that they're gonna. I've got to meet a lot of those people that are going to be part of this.
So when you're, how did you know that you had a TBI?
Well, first off, it was because of the mechanism of injury that I had.
Right.
Walter Reed automatically looked for it. I had 3 81 millimeter mortars blow up within 15 feet of me. That alone is going to give you some concussive effect.
Right.
At least according to all the military experts and Walter Reed. And I say that with tongue in cheek because workman's comp didn't believe that I had a TBI. And so they wanted to give me a test. And, the standard in the military is you're going to go do a PET scan and brain mapping. And the technology now identifies every spot where you have an injury in your brain. Right. So workman's comp comes in and says, we got this lady, you sit in the room with her for 6 hours and you go through, I don't know, it was 6 hours of can you do this or this? And it just questions that you had to fill in the dot. And after about 2 weeks, she sent back an evaluation. She said, I had no concussive effect. I'm like,
solid.
She's the expert.
Right.
That's the, That's the, and it's like,
So they can tell just by Q&A.
that's
Just
what
like a multiple choice.
yes.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. That's totally.
It
I
does.
think that's foolproof. To be honest with you, it's tight.
It's definitely practical.
Yeah, definitely. That's tight.
Maybe I shouldn't go down this road, but I think that's what they should make every kid take when they go to school, so we know that it's safe there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's a great point.
This is great, man. Fuck firefights, man. I like talking about like poop and shit like this, man. I'm having a blast tonight.
So did you? So how did they confirm that you had?
It's through the different tests that they give you through the
Gotcha.
PET scan. They do the brain mapping. They can sit there. I mean, you can sit there, and it's literally with technology now. They can map exactly where, and you see the gray spots, and that's where it's pretty much died. Different things like that, and most of the time, with most injuries like that, it's on the opposite side of where the injury had, because you're depending on how the explosion or how the mechanism of injury occurs, because it just rattles your brain around,
Right.
and kind of separates your brain from on the inside from the inner parts that connect to along the skull, and because it beats the hell out. There's a lot of treatments out there. I mean, I'm trying the stem cell. There's HBOT therapy, and there's a lot of groups out there that are doing non-pharmaceutical treatment now, because when we get into TBI or PTS, and I don't call it PTSD. It's not a disorder. It's a brain injury. PTS is a brain injury just like anything else, and it's the VA. I guess I kind of look at it like they love you to death. It's not that they're trying to do anything bad. I think they want you. When I was going through my therapy after I got out of Walter Reed, and I was going through some of my other surgeries and physical therapy and rehab and all that, I was on. I think it was 600 or 800 milligrams of OxyContin a day.
Jesus.
I was on 1,800 milligrams of Neurontin. I was on another, I guess, kind of like an antidepressant. And then, of course, because you got all the oxy you're taking, now your gastrointestinal is all jacked up. So now you got to be on, Colace and all these stool softeners and stuff like that. And, they wanted me to not be in pain. I mean,
Right.
it's not they were trying to hurt. They wanted you to not be in pain. We want to take care of you. And it's kind of like they love you to death.
Right.
For me, it was, I never really had any problem getting off of it. I just got tired of, I didn't even tell the doctors. I was sitting at home and I was just tired of being lethargic and not having energy and everything. And so I just decided after, I think I took a week and I cut my doses in half, took another week, cut that in half again, and then took the next week and just quit. And, the doctors, they're like, so we need to start getting you off your pain meds. I'm like, I'm already off of them. And they're like, well, when did you do that? I'm like, I don't know, about 3 months ago. Well, you didn't tell us. I'm like, well, you didn't ask,
Right.
But it's, and it's not that it's, a lot of people have difficulty because
Right.
I think for me, it was, I got off of it soon enough when I still had a lot of pain, because I think the pain uses up that, and I'm no doctor, but it uses that up that OxyContin or whatever. So you don't feel that dependency. It's when you stay on it longer and longer and trying to stop that pain when you really don't have it as much as you may think you do. It's just the habit of taking the stuff.
Got it. That makes sense.
Guys got to
Yeah.
get off of that stuff, and we got to be careful and watch them and take care of each other. Guys that what they're suffering, either TBI, PTS, injuries, we got to take care of each other, because we can't depend on the VA or anybody. And I don't mean that bad towards the VA. It's just, get your brothers back.
I agree with that statement. They just love you to death. I think that, but that can be also, you can misinterpret that as you're just being lazy. You don't want to solve the problem. Just give me these drugs, or give them the drugs, and a lot of that could be they have too much to do. Like the systems,
Yep.
you know, it's flooded, they're backlogged. The easiest solution is this: just here's some drugs. You know, check back in with us. We'll extend your script and keep. I mean, because it's super easy to extend a script.
Oh.
Like, bang, here you go. Here's another, and then all of a sudden they get there and they're like, "Holy shit, you've been on this way too long. We got to take you off." Cold turkey, whack.
Yep.
No more. Oh well. Now I've been on this for a while, right? Huh? How am I gonna go get this? Well, there's opioids on the streets.
Yep. Yeah, the first thing they do is they go try to find pharmaceuticals selling on the streets.
Yep.
And if you can't do that, then you're going to result to the next best thing, and that's going to be heroin. And, you know,
I got a buddy that was
fentanyl, whatever.
I got a buddy that was doing that stuff for 10 years and doing great now, like phenomenal dude. And I was like, man, I was like, dude, like, what's the deal, man? Like, you don't seem like an addictive guy. Like, he's like, I never cared about the booze. He never cared about any other drugs or any of that stuff. He said that was the one thing, and that was the only thing I cared about. And he said everyone has a lock inside of them. And he goes, you just hope to God you don't ever find the key to that lock, because if you do, you're in trouble. And he's told me stories about shit those guys would do to find opioids and OxyContin and shit, man. And it is just blow your mind, some of the shit those guys do. My brother is an MD. He was so against opioids and not wanting to deal with them. He went and got a fellowship in pain management, so he wouldn't have to prescribe it. He could just do like the injections and stuff like that and nerve blockers and stuff, because he wanted nothing to do with them. To this day, he won't mess with them because they're just so gnarly.
Well, I mean, you get somebody on them, it's if you don't, I mean, and I think even if you've been on them before, you know, I mean, I would be very hesitant about ever taking them. You know, I mean, my body, you know, and I don't know, but I was on them for almost a year.
Wow.
When I got off, and it's like, you know, I would worry if I had to get back on it again. I wouldn't do it because I don't want that chance of my body maybe remembering what it was and try to find that, and it just turn into something that, because it's easy. I mean, drugs. As a cop, I've dealt with a lot of people that were addicts. You know, and you get down that road, and I mean, that's why we have burglaries. That's why we have break-ins and all of this, because people are, when you get addicted to that stuff the way some of the people do, they don't care about anything but that drug.
They think we're the idiots because we're out working and we're not doing drugs. Like they're the smart ones in their mind. They're like, hey,
right.
I got drugs, I got heroin. These fucking idiots are doing some dumbass podcast in a hotel in Las Vegas.
Well, except for Dave. He's not really doing anything, but
It's true.
so that plays to their favor. He is I'm not working. I'm just neither on drugs nor am I working. I'm watching a movie with my headphones on as you guys are on a podcast.
And Dave's like, oh, you SOBs.
So you're headed down, and you're going to do some stem cell. You actually said you might get some excess pushed into the joints too, right?
Yeah. The one thing that, you know, and they do that here in the States. There's the one thing with that is, because really what stem cells, the way your body reacts is if you have an injury, naturally your body automatically starts sending stem cells in the bloodstream to that injured area. It seeks out inflammation. You get that in your joints. They've shown that it really helps with arthritis, with knee pain, with, you know, I'm getting some in my back because I've got some back injuries from either you know, jumping out of airplanes, jumping out of 6x too much, or whatever the case may be. And then hopefully we're going to put some into my hand too and see if we can get rid of some of the arthritis or whatever. It's I say just get rid of the pain in there a bit, because it's just, I mean, it's, I don't know, it's just life.
It's life. Your hand looks a lot better though. I will say that.
It does. I mean, it's, you know, it's pretty good. I mean, I'm really happy with where it's at because it's my arm and it's on my body, and
Yeah.
I mean,
it shouldn't have been.
The left
Right.
pinky looks a little squirrely, but by and large, I mean, it's like, what's wrong with that?
Well, and so my thumb used to be only able to do that. So we had to take a tendon off of one of my fingers. So my index finger, we anchored it back here about 4 or 5 inches back past the wrist, and then we wrapped it around and then brought it up and hooked to the thumb. So, and you can tell. So when I go to like move my thumb, this finger has to come out almost always, because the tendon that they use to pull the finger or pull my thumb over is the same one that causes. There's two tendons back here that cause your finger to point. So you can take one off and hook it over here. So when it pulls, this one it's almost, it's because it does that. Well, this one does, technically this does this, but now it's this one that pulls that causes that thumb to go down. That's why. So it's like if I'm doing that a lot of time, it's like it'll stick out. So it's kind of funny, but.
In science, radical, man. Modern medical science, man. The shit those guys can do is pretty amazing.
It is. I mean, if nothing has come out of the last 20 years of war is the medical advances that we've had. I mean, I know a guy that's got his arms. He had a double, lost both his arms, and so now he has robotic arms, basically. And they move just like regular hands.
Right.
And basically it's tied into the muscles in his neck, and so he can flex those muscles in his neck that causes his to work his hands. It's just got to kind of do that.
That's crazy.
And
That's wild.
my hand surgeon said in another 10 years they're going to be able to have that all of that just wired in to you're going to think it's going to happen.
That's awesome.
I mean, you guys probably don't remember. I don't know how many in here remember Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man. Anybody?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Baker's old too.
Think about that. They're going to have.
I'm a year older than you. I grew up in Idaho not watching television. We would run through the woods raised by gay wolves. He's an elitist. He's better than us because we watch Bionic Man.
But it's they're going to have that. Back then you're like, they'll never have this. I mean, what? And they're going to have. That's what we're going to have.
Well, man, I'm smoked.
I can tell.
I'm smoked. It's good. It's good to have you on the show, man. I mean, it's for the second episode of Mark Geist. I think we did pretty well, especially because we've been on the floor all day. So
yeah,
it
was good.
Good to have you on the show. More than happy to have you anytime you want. I'm Evan Hafer, Baker Leavitt, Mark Geist. We're out.